Hi, it's Vicky and welcome to the first video of my new Art Journal 101 series. Today on my blog I talk about gesso, so make sure to visit and find out what gesso is, how to apply it, different types available in the market, as well as my top 10 list of reasons I use gesso on my art journals. In short, gesso is a primer, and that means that if you apply it on any surface, it will provide the needed tooth so that the paint will stick there. I share lots of info on my blog post today about that, so make sure to visit, but here I want to show you in the video how gesso looks. This is a quite thick gesso, it's by Ranger, and you can find different types of gesso in the market that vary from thinner to thicker, as well as others that provide more texture or less texture. Depends on what you want to do. For example, I could use this thinner gesso, which is by Faber-Castell, if I wanted to apply a thinner layer or if I wanted to make a wash over my background without covering it up, and I would use the thicker one with my spatula to create a textured background. I have one more gesso on hand to show you, which is by the Bob Ross collection of products, and it's the more liquid that I have. In this video, the idea is not to explain what gesso does, because I have written this down, everything, all the info that you need on my blog. But instead I want to show you how gesso looks and how you can use it, since I can't show it that through photos on my blog post. There are different ways to apply gesso, so you can use your brush, you can use a spatula, a brayer, even your fingers, or just a piece of hard cardstock or a business card or gift card. In today's video, I'll demonstrate how different mediums react with or without gesso. To do so, I'll be using my new notebook. This is my new Elite, and it's from Nuku. It has a nice elastic band as well as a pocket at the back, so you can keep different pieces for your mixed media art journal layout. It has 200 pages, and if you find that the pages are a bit thin for what you do, you can always stick two of them together using your gel medium. Now I'll link to that notebook on my blog. You can find the link to my blog post just below the video in the YouTube area if you're watching on YouTube. So let's get started. I'll be using my thick gesso for today, and I'll apply it on one of the two pages using my spatula, and I'll just cover up the whole page. I've used my spatula and I haven't been neat at all, so I made sure that I applied my thick gesso, creating a textured background. I'll show you one of my layouts here. Let me find it first, that I've used the same technique on my background, so here it is. It's the one with the dream catcher. I'm not sure if you can see the background, but it's quite textured, and I've done that by just using my gesso and my spatula. And now that my page is nice and dry, I'll go ahead and use some acrylic paint and add just a small dot on the first page, which is gessoed, and on the second page, which doesn't have gesso on the surface. I've actually went ahead and added just a bit more acrylic paint on the second one. So now I'll go ahead and use my brush. I'll make sure that my brush is totally dry. I can now apply the paint all over my page. You can see how much I can work with the paint and how easy I can apply it. And now I'll move on to the second page without the gesso on the surface. I just make sure that my brush is nice and dry again. And you can see that I can't move my paint as much. Now the difference is that here I can get much vibrant color, but I have to use too much paint to cover up my whole background. In the first case, with gesso on the background, I don't get as much of a vibrant color, but since I can move the paint too much, but I can also add a second layer since I only use such a small amount of paint. Now I'll be using just a dab of my distress paint, and I'll do exactly the same test so you can see that it works exactly the same. At first I'm trying to apply the paint on the non-gessoed surface, and now you can see how easy it is to move the paint on my gessoed surface. Notice that Distress Paint stays vibrant in both cases, which is something that I love, and I'll show you the back. It wouldn't bleed at the back if you used gesso, no matter what medium you used, but on the other page that I haven't used gesso, I might get some bleeding at the back. Now I'll go ahead and use gelato. This is by Faber-Castell, and I'll try to blend in the color. You can see I can do it on both pages, but it's much easier. I can move the paint easier if I work on my gessoed page. But I get a vibrant color in both cases. Now it depends on what you want to do and the look that you want to have. I prefer using gelatos on gessoed surfaces. And now I'll go ahead and use my Pit Brush marker, which is a marker that I love to add shading on my pages. Notice that I can move and blend the ink when it's on the gessoed surface, just because it's non-porous. And now I'll go on and cover up another page, so I can show you that in some cases you don't want gesso on your surface. I'll just use my spatula and cover up this page and use my heat gun. You can always leave your gesso to dry naturally, but I'm just too impatient, so I always use my heat gun. And now I'll be using my dilution spray. Notice that it creates puddles of color on the first case, while it's nicely absorbed on the second one. So in this case I wouldn't use gesso on the background, but notice that it doesn't bleed from the back, while in this case it does. So I would use gesso on the back of the page, and that would make sure that I wouldn't get any bleeding on the other side. It's always nice to have such a notebook for experiments before you go on and try things on your main art. I'll show you another example. I'm using this watercolor pencil by Faber-Castell, and I'll go over it with water. The page I'm working on at the moment has gesso on the background. You can see that I can move the paint with my wet brush, but the water stays on top. It doesn't absorb, and I don't get as much of a vibrant color. Now I'll try the same thing on the other page without gesso at the background. You can see that I get a much more vibrant color. I can move the paint, but remember that this is not a watercolor notepad, so you wouldn't get as a great result as you would if that was a watercolor page. Now, one of the questions that I get all the time on my videos is when do you use gesso and when do you use gel medium? I guess that in the video, just because both of those bottles look white, it's a bit of confusing. However, this is gel medium. Gel medium looks white, but it's milky, and when you apply it, it's actually transparent and dries transparent. I use that as a glue to glue things on top or to cover up things when I want them to have a non-porous surface, while gesso is totally white. Think of it as white paint, thick white paint. Now you can always go ahead and thin that paint using a baby wipe. That's a wet baby wipe there, and that's a great technique for creating faded backgrounds, or push your pattern papers at the back and create backgrounds. Or you can also use a wet brush and move the paint, make it thinner, and cover up your surface easier. If you have any kind of questions, just make sure to leave me a comment on my blog. I'll collect all the questions about gesso and make sure to answer them in one of my future videos. I hope you had fun today, and thank you all for watching.